my epiphany was VCs do not invest with their brains. VCs invest with their hearts. If you were an entrepreneur, every time you open your mouth, you are pitching. The secret is you've got to get them to fall in love.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Business Narrative. Today we have a guest who has been teaching many people, many startups, how you can deliver your pitch just like wow. He is none other than Bill Reichert. Bill, thank you so much for your precious time. And today I personally will going to learn how to pitch an idea to VC consultants, right?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. Delighted to be here.
The pleasure is all mine, Bill. Bill, I will directly jump into the first question, which is relevant to your field. And like you have seen many pitches in your career, right? But like who inspired you to write a book? And the title of the book is Wow, like pitching like wow. How?
Well, thank you for the question. I started my career here in Silicon Valley as an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, I was extremely fortunate. I had some just great mentors who supported me. But I learned that the way you develop the pitch was to create a 56 slide deck and have charts and graphs and tables and logic. And the idea was to try to just overwhelm the listener with the compelling narrative of your story. And then I became a VC. So after my fourth company went public, I got together with a gentleman named Guy Kawasaki, and we started a new venture capital firm called Garage Technology Ventures. And we would get pitches, flooding in. We were extremely fortunate, but I realized after listening to so many pitches on the other side of the table, that so much of the pitch coach wisdom that I had been taught was simply wrong. And so one day, a friend of mine said, "Hey, Bill, how would you like to be a judge at a pitch coach competition?" And my reaction, she overheard me groan over the phone. And she said, "Bill, but I thought you loved to listen to entrepreneur pitches." And I said, June, yes, I do, but we're doing something wrong. Why aren't these pitches any good? And she said, "Okay, Bill, if you are so smart, then why don't you figure it out and tell us?" And so that's what got me going. And what I learned as I sort of watched other VCs investing, and I watched us making our own investment decisions, I learned something very important. My epiphany was VCs do not invest with their brains. VCs invest with their hearts. And so it's not about tables and graphs and charts and logic. It's about being compelling. It's about saying something that's going to make the investor or the customer or the potential recruit. It's about saying something that's going to cause them to say, "Wow, that's amazing. You can do that?" Wow is not an intellectual response, right? Wow is an emotional response. And so I realized that's the problem with most pitch coaching, is they can't figure out how to help the entrepreneurs get to wow. And so that's what the book is about.
That clearly makes sense, Bill. Bill, you always emphasize this that pitch is not a presentation. Many people, when they go to VC consultants, when they are trying to pitch their idea, they always try to present the presentation, right? But on the other side, you say that pitch is not a presentation. So, like, why pitch is not a presentation? Number one. Number two, like, how you can make your pitch perfect. So what are some good ingredients that can make a pitch into perfection?
So here are the ingredients. So your listeners aren't going to have to buy the book, okay? So in any case, the ingredients are, so the reason that a pitch is not a presentation. So part of what I realized was that most pitch coaches are actually presentation coaches. And the difference between a pitch and a presentation is that a presentation is like a TED Talk, right? you know what a TED Talk is, right? And so the idea of a TED Talk is you've got 16 minutes to build a narrative arc. And so you start out with a setting, and then you create a hero, and then you create a villain, and then you create a crisis, and then you create this narrative arc, and in the end, the hero wins. So that's the basic arc of even a business presentation. That's the way, TED teaches you to do a presentation. That's why you have all these presentation coaches who talk about storytelling to create a narrative arc. You don't have the opportunity when you are pitching to create a narrative arc. A pitch is much more like a tennis match than it is like a presentation. A presentation means, you've got an audience, they're sitting there, and they're expected to listen and not interrupt. A pitch is much more like, making your case before the Supreme Court. You get 2 sentences out, and a VC is likely to interrupt you. If your pitch is good, it will be highly interactive. And so that's what you have to design your pitch around. And so some of the key aspects of pitching that I coach entrepreneurs to learn is to understand, as an entrepreneur, most of your pitches will be 20 seconds or shorter. Even elevator pitches are 60 seconds, right? And demo day pitches are, 2 minutes or 4 minutes. What do you mean 20 seconds? If you were an entrepreneur, every time you open your mouth, you are pitching. Every time you're introduced to someone, every time you're introduced, every time, you're schmoozing at a trade show or you're at an event, you are pitching, with your every 20 seconds of your communication with other people around you. You've got to figure out how to get your compelling point across in 20 seconds. And so the core of what I teach entrepreneurs is, in 20 seconds, you've got to be clear about what you do. You've got to say something compelling. We're 10 times better than XYZ, right? And you've got to be credible. Be clear, be compelling, be credible in the first 20 or even 30 seconds of any time you are talking about your company. But no, pitch coaches tell entrepreneurs, well, you start with the problem, right? That makes sense, right? Start with the problem. Guess what? A lot of people die every year from cancer. Do you know how many people die from lung cancer? Do you know how many people die from prostate cancer? Do you know how many people die from breast cancer? Well, it turns out there's 685,000 Americans who die. So the entrepreneurs go on for 2, 3, 4 minutes explaining how many people die from cancer. Guess what? I know cancer is a problem. I didn't know it was 685,000, right? Okay, that's fine. But, if you walk in and you say, we cure cancer, boom, right? Why are you telling me that cancer is a problem, or that abandoned shopping carts are a problem, or that cybersecurity is a problem? Or why are you telling me that what this problem is? Just tell me your freaking solution. If you tell me your solution 9 times out of 10 or 19 times out of 20, if you just tell me your solution, I will know the problem you are solving. And it turns out that your benefits, when you then tell me what your compelling value proposition is, your compelling value proposition is the problem you are solving. So why do pitch coaches tell entrepreneurs to start with the problem? Because they're presentation coaches. They figure, you got 15 minutes and they're going to, the audience is going to be quiet. But I don't have 15 minutes to listen to you, right? Maybe if you're lucky, I'll give you 30 seconds. And that's the reality of venture capital.
Okay. Bill, there are many founders, they are engineers, right? Basically, they are technical guys, right? And they don't know how to operate operations when they found their own business, right? On the other side, you also claim this, that MBAs guys, or those people who belongs to business field, they can be irritating to VC consultant. Like how? Because you have a vast experience in every field.
I'm not sure I wanted to go publicly on record that MBAs are irritating, but my partner Guy Kawasaki used to have a metric for valuing startups, and his metric was 500,000. A startup is worth $500,000 for each engineer, minus $250,000 for each MBA. That was his math for and the point being that MBAs have a tendency to try to pitch you on how much money you're going to make if you invest in this company. And so, I don't want you to try to tell me how much money I'm going to make. What I want you to tell me is what is the compelling value proposition that is going to cause customers to want your product desperately. And so, on the MBA side, how much value are they adding in terms of product technology, secret sauce, and sort of the core of the value proposition. Now, on the other side, the challenge that engineers frequently have when they are pitching is engineers frequently are focused on the product and the technology. And so while that's core to what enables a compelling value proposition, it's not the compelling value proposition. And so entrepreneurs are enamored of the elegance of their algorithms and their tech stack and their unique architecture and design. And that's valuable at some point. But what really counts is, do you deliver a benefit to customers that is 5 or 10 times better than their alternatives? And that's what we want to hear. And so that's the problem with the sort of two extremes of the spectrum. What we want is for them to come together to the middle and tell us their compelling value proposition and how they're going to be able to execute on it, over what period of time, with what amount of capital, with what sort of economic efficiency. So that's what I'm trying to get to. You got to bring together the business mindset and the engineering mindset into a customer-centric value proposition.
Totally, they need to be flexible, right? They should know how to work under one roof. The next question is, which is very relevant, because we are living in a digital era where there are tons of startups right now. Every person who is not doing anything, he has mentioned CEO or co-founder in his LinkedIn or Instagram bio. So for new entrepreneurs or those people who are already running their businesses, what sort of advice you want to give to all of them uh, in the sea of startups in this digital era?
So if you're starting up a company, you need to build a great team. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs, you like to say, and we have a world-class team. Well, probably not. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be a world-class team, but a great team is a team that complements each other in terms of skills base, domain knowledge, and perspectives on the world. And so, we could spend an hour talking about what it takes to build a great team. But one of the most important aspects of building a great team is the signal that it sends to the outside world, whether it's to investors or to customers. If I see that you are surrounded with, an outstanding group of people who complement you and contribute to enabling you to execute on your key issues, then that gives me a lot of comfort. If I see an entrepreneur who comes to me and says, "Hey, Bill, I got a great idea, give me some money and I'll go hire some people," I'm going to say, no, you got it backwards, right? I mean, why is it you're coming to me and you don't already have, 3, 4, whatever co-founders who are totally passionate about this vision? If you cannot attract, some co-founders who are passionate about your vision or this vision, then why do you expect me to fall in love with you?
Your answer was very concise and very through the point, Bill. And now the second stage comes for a founder when he's trying to deliver his pitch, like how he can connect to an investor emotionally with his startup, right? Any two or three steps you want to tell to newbies, new entrepreneurs who are watching this, so that they can note down, and those two or three points will going to help them in near future when they will going to collect seed money for their startup.
First of all, you've got to do your research and figure out who are the right investors to pitch to. And so, everybody tends to want to go to the sort of most famous top tier investor day one. But that's probably not the right investor when you're starting out. Generally, when you're starting out, you're going to want, angel investors or maybe, seed stage funds, right? So you got to do your homework and figure out who are the people that are the, qualified prospects for for investing in your company. So, and then you got to figure out how to connect with them through some channel of referral or reference. And so again, it's really hard to cold call an investor and get them, to be willing to spend time with you. So that's really hard. So you need to send a signal to each investor that you know someone that they know who believes that you are credible and therefore worth the investor's time to talk with. So, at a minimum, you want to get the permission to say, hey, I know you've worked with Ben before. Ben said that you're a great investor. He recommended if you'd like to talk to Ben about me, that'd be great. But I'd love to set up a Zoom call or something like whatever, right? Okay. So you're trying to get a signal that you are credible, through some relationship that the investor considers to be credible. So much, much better is for Ben to actually reach out to the investor and say to the investor, hey, Bill, I know this entrepreneur and it's an incredible company. I really recommend you listen to them. And so that's sort of getting to the right investors. Then once you connect with the investor at some level, then the sort of the 3 C's that I mentioned before are what are critical. So again, in the sort of first paragraph of any outreach to any investor, once you said, I really appreciate that Ben introduced me to you, right? Then you say, ABC Co. is doing, something, right? So the first thing you have to do is you have to be crystal clear what it is you're doing. Do not assume that an investor ever remembers what your company is doing. Every time you talk about your company, you need to have that one sentence descriptor that clearly defines what it is you do. Now, it's amazing to me how few entrepreneurs have that sentence. It's crazy how many entrepreneurs say, well, we're going to empower the future of education. I mean, what the heck does that mean, right? So, last night, an entrepreneur, got up and he said, we're going to enable twice the compute power with the same cost. And okay, I mean, that's kind of a value proposition, but it's not clear what you do, and it's not credible that you can do that. And so you have to start with a clear sentence that describes what you do in ways that anybody can understand, in terms of, having an image in their brain of what this company is doing. So why don't entrepreneurs have that sentence? It's amazing to me how few entrepreneurs have that sentence. So that's first, right? Second, you've got to say what your compelling value proposition is. So, you know, and we have been able to demonstrate that we can accelerate big data analytics by a factor of 100x using the same hardware. So, whoa, that's a wow. So the wow is in the compelling value proposition. You know, we can launch rockets into outer space and reuse the rocket. Every time we launched a rocket, we would throw away all the boosters. And he said, well, that's crazy expensive. Why don't we reuse the boosters? We build these extremely expensive engines and we throw them into the sea. That's insane, right? Why don't we recover those extremely expensive engines and reuse them? The third thing you have to do is you have to be credible. So, you know, what every investor is thinking while you are talking is, oh yeah, you know, either I've heard that before, people have tried that before, that can't be done. There was a space shuttle, right? We canceled the space shuttle. So, you know, it's a stupid idea. You've got to have a credible statement, right? And so you have to be able to say, unlike those other people who tried to do this before, or unlike those other people who are out there doing this, we are different in this way that makes us superior to all of those other guys. So unfortunately, most entrepreneurs say, well, nobody else can do what we do. And that's not credible. That destroys your credibility when you say that. Never say that. That's, you know, like, and we have no competition. Never say that. Or we, you know, and we have the first mover advantage. Never say that, right? There is no such thing as a first mover advantage. You've got to give some specific, concrete, credible evidence that what you are saying is true. So you have to be clear, you have to be compelling, and you have to be credible, all in the first paragraph. You do not want the investor thinking halfway through your pitch, I still don't understand what these guys do. But all too frequently, that's the reality of our experience with entrepreneur pitches. So make sure that at the front end, you are clear, you are compelling, and you are credible. And that's the secret to getting an investor to fall in love with your company.
These three C's are key C's for the growth of your startup, and I think these points will going to help a lot of people. Now I will going to detrack you a little bit, Bill, because we have a surprise rapid fire round. Now we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions and you have to answer them very quickly. Mountains or beaches?
It depends on my mood.
Any secret talent that nobody knows about yourself?
I was a championship curler when I was young.
Any application that is improving your productivity on daily basis?
I have been searching the world literally for some dev team to create a unified messaging app that will bring all of my messages in from all of my different channels into one unified space, will filter them, prioritize them, and enable me to respond to them natively without having to open up 4, 5, 6, 7 different apps in order to find and respond to messages. So that's my current complaint about the tech world. But I got to admit, you know, I'm not in love with any particular apps that have, you know, changed my life. You know, ChatGPT and Google and Claude and all those guys, they're nice. They're definitely improvements on the world, but they're not game changers in terms of my productivity.
So this is the end of a rapid fire round. Before leaving, Bill, we have a time limit, that we had a lot of things to discuss. But before leaving, any message for those entrepreneurs, those people who are juggling around, they are trying to solve problems for people, but unfortunately, they are not getting success. One message you want to give to all of them so that they can take and they can implement.
I think the most important thing to remember is that investors and customers and potential recruits, anytime you're out there in the world trying to get people to do something you want them to do, you need to understand that the secret is not to overwhelm them with data and logic and evidence and charts and graphs. The secret is you've got to get them to fall in love. And the secret to falling in love is, how is this going to make my life dramatically better than it was before I met you, right? And that's the life secret of falling in love. It happens to apply to venture capital. It happens to apply to sales. It happens to apply to recruiting. And so that's what I would encourage entrepreneurs to figure out. And the secret again to that is to be customer centric, to be, focused on the wants and needs and interests of the person you're talking to, rather than focusing on your own brilliance, your own technology, your own vision. Hopefully that makes sense to most of the entrepreneurs that are listening in now.
Thank you so much, Bill, for giving a masterclass on pitching your idea to VC investors. And I hope all these tips and tricks will going to help you a lot. We will be going to meet you in the next podcast. Till then, keep listening, keep dating, and keep achieving your dreams. Take a first step, and you will see the results soon. We will be going to meet you in the next podcast. Till then, take care. Bye bye.